The Chronicle thanks our 2023 Meet the Candidates sponsors: Ann Colton Films, Flossmoor Station Restaurant and Brewery, Jonathan Kane Salon and Spa, and Tom Brabeck Law Office. With their help, HF voters will be well informed on Election Day, April 4th.
So welcome, and the Chronicle is interviewing candidates running for office April 4th. So I'd like for each of you to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about and how long you've been on the board and why you're running again.
Hi, my name is Alex Bosch. I have been on the 153 school board for 11 years. My wife and I have been residents of Homewood for over 25 years. We have 3 children. All 3 of them have gone through School District 153 and have either attended or are attending Homewood-Flossmoor High School. I'm running for the board again because I think I have, based upon my professional and volunteer expertise, I have something to continue to offer to the board. And I think it's also important to give back to the community in some capacity, and my passion has been to work within the schools. And so,
hi, my name is Jim Schmidt, and I am running for a position on the 153 school board. I've lived in Homewood now. My wife and I have lived in Homewood now for 27 years. We've raised 3 children here. We moved here for the sole purpose of education and community and the affordability of our house. I currently work at the high school. I've been there for 20 years at Homewood-Flossmoor High School as the guidance department chair. And this is going to be my 5th term as a board member. 16 years ago, when I was offered the opportunity to run for the board, I took it. As a lifelong educator, it was an opportunity for me to experience education at a different level. But most importantly, it was a way for me to give back to something that I strongly believed in. Education that did a phenomenal job in the raising or the assisting of raising my 3 daughters. And I believe in what we do here. I believe in our administration. Back then it was Dale Mitchell, and now it's Scott McAllister. I believe in what our teachers do and what we offer, and I believe in our motto as a school that all students can learn and all students will be served. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Ron Zinnerman, and I've been on the Homewood School Board 153 going about 4 years. Excited to continue this work with some great board members, staff, and students. I had 3 daughters who came through this district. My wife and I thoroughly enjoyed our experience in meeting the other parents, going through programming here in the district, as well as working with the staff. And so when I had the opportunity to join, I leaped to this opportunity because I knew this was a great endeavor, and it's all about our kids. And so I sit on the Finance and Property Committee, and excited about continuing the work that we're doing there, excited about ensuring that we continue the great work that we do in the community. So I look forward to continuing service for the Homewood School Board.
sure. So as folks may know, we had a referendum in 2011, and then we also had another referendum in 2016. And the 2016 referendum allowed the district to issue debt or bonds, which would be paid off over time. So the amount of time we have left to pay off the bonds from the 2016 referendum is approximately 3 years. Once the bonds are paid off, the taxes or homeowners' property tax bills will be reduced by an amount. For each of us, it's slightly different, and that amount will come off of the property tax bill permanently, I guess, if you will, as a result of the debt being paid off from the 2016 referendum. Now, obviously, we passed a referendum in FY22, and that was that referendum allowed us to increase property taxes, and that's a permanent tax increase.
Well, great question. First of all, we embarked on a 5-year strategic plan, which we've met the expectation and the goals of that plan. Part of it is around our capital in our buildings. So there's a full assessment of all of our buildings, similar to what we would do in our homes, assessing what we can improve upon and what needs to wait. And so we have a huge list, and our buildings are 50 plus years old, and we have not been able to do substantial developments to accommodate all of our buildings, but as a board and a great planning with our superintendent, I believe that we've been able to manage a lot with less. And so we still have some maintenance needs that, boilers, things that happen during over time, wear and tear. But we're excited. We've had some temporary fixes in regards to accommodate at our Millennium and Churchill, some of our older facilities. And so there's some more things to come. Quite frankly, in the Finance and Property Committee, what we do is review and just try to figure out what's a priority and what's fiscally responsible, because what we have to be good stewards. I know everyone would love for us to just do a whole bunch of additions and so on, but quite frankly, there's a lot involved with that, and we want to make certain that all of our taxpayers and everyone, it's great when you can see things that have been built and so on, but quite frankly, there's a lot of work that takes place that no one will see. Roofing, window replacement, you mentioned in regards to the HVAC system, which is a huge deal for us coming through COVID. So I would just say that there's some more work to be done. We have several pages of upgrades that could be needed, but just as we would do in our personal lives, we're trying to make sure that we're being deliberate in our effort.
Okay.
Our students are, especially ones coming out of 153 that I see working at the high school, they're strong, they're resilient, they're prepared, but they are not unlike any other child or really any other person that went through the pandemic. And certainly nationally, we saw that trend of students' behavior changing prior to the pandemic, right? You could look at hospitalizations, you could look at suicidal numbers. You could look at drug usage. All of those numbers, all those indicators were increasing prior to the pandemic. Our school district was aware of that. In fact, our last long-range planning, that was one of our goals that was listed on there, is the social-emotional support of our students. And one of the ways in which we do that is certainly making our staff, our administration, aware of what those trends are. Knowledge is power, right? So first of all, what are the trends, the issues, what are the strategies, and what are the tools that we have available in order to support, and it's important to support our kids, absolutely, but also to support each other as adults. We all went through that pandemic, right? It impacted all of us to different degrees. As I said, our students are resilient, our staff has been resilient. We're coming out of this. As a school, we have social workers, we have school counselors, additional training on SEL programming. Anything that, first of all, we see coming down the pike, we try to be proactive. But also schools are reactive in nature. So as student behavior shifts, we shift with it and we address. It's kind of where we're at right now. As I said, it's I don't say things are leveling out or they're improving. We're constantly trying to be aware and trying to be supportive. And that's all the way from the top on down.
Last year, we approved a consultant that specializes in inclusion efforts, and specifically in school districts. I believe it started towards third quarter of last year, and there's still staff that will be going through it. There was a survey that was conducted within our district to get a pulse of our staff and how they feel that we're doing, because you need to know what your baseline is. We're fully supportive. As with most communities, we have a continuously changing demographic. We have students that from all backgrounds and walks of life, but also administrators. As you're aware of, there is a slowdown of students that want to major in education. And so, we have to continuously be attractive for, not only for our students and the families, but also for our staff, that they view us as being have a sense of belonging, being in our district. And so we're serious about it. We've seen some fruits of the labor. There are some things we had to start doing before COVID around video interviewing to make it convenient for the folks that are interested in working in our district. That's paid some dividends for us, and we've seen our numbers increase. I don't know them, but we had a meeting about this. You probably were there, but we saw some good strides and some good progress. But that's just around representation. There's also things we still have work to do in our district, as most companies do, in ensuring that we have an inclusive culture. As the saying goes, being invited to the dance versus being actually dancing and participating. We want everyone to feel that they can bring their authentic selves to our district.
I think a few things that I would add that Mr. Zinnerman alluded to earlier is 5 years ago we had a 5-year strategic plan, and one of the major goals out of the 5 was diversity, equity, and inclusion. And as you had mentioned, there's a diversity, equity, inclusion committee within the district, and I think since it's one of our goals, and I think we all very strongly believe in the importance of it. I think it's one of our, I would say, almost like a basic tenet. I think in everything that we try and do from a district standpoint, whether it is whether it involves curriculum, whether it involves, as Mr. Zinnerman has mentioned, hiring individuals, staff. I think there have been efforts to go out and recruit a more diverse set of individuals going to schools and so on. So I think, as Mr. Zinnerman said, we've because it's part of the climate or the culture that we have within our district, we're definitely trying to promote it, and everything that we do, it's part of what we do, and we still have a lot more to do. I think where we were 5 years ago, as Mr. Zinnerman said, compared to where we are today, I think we've made some pretty good efforts moving forward with it. Can we do better? Of course. Are we going to continue our efforts to move forward with promoting it, encouraging it, and keeping that as part of our culture? I think the answer is yes to that.
Now, I want to give kudos to Dr. McAllister because since he's been here, he's been intentional in regards to when we do have vacancies and we do have opportunities to bring in talent. There's also generational shift as well, so the broadest spectrum of diversity. That's something that we continuously have to work on. Most school districts do in regards to, as you have an aging workforce and then you have newer teachers coming in, just ensuring, again, this isn't just a gender diversity and racial diversity, it's also we have other diversity items on the spectrum that we're trying to keep an eye on. It's huge, right? And it's a challenge in the private sector as well, but we're up for it, and I agree it's not a program. We've decided as a district it's a part of the tenets of foundation of our district.
Okay.
If I can add to that, because
Yeah.
I think it's important when we talk about attracting that, but also retaining. The amount of efforts to attract has increased. It has been intentional. I think it really is. It's an underlying identifying factor of the board, of our administration, of the school district. The amount of energy that's also gone into retaining our staff. So that it's been very important for Dr. McAllister and his team and the board in order to do that. Mr. Bosch referenced curriculum. We're always looking at ways in which to be proactively impacting and connecting with students, and also supportively to our parents. As our community is diversifying, there are supports that they need from the first time they reach out into our offices in terms of phone call, in terms of stopping in and asking for forms and processes and things like that. So we are always willing to go to that table to find a way to remove barriers, make people feel welcome, all the way from the top of our superintendent to our teachers, our administration, our students, and our community.
Thank you. We got one question from the public, and it was, how is the board going to cut so that you're not going to ask for another referendum? Now, obviously, the referendum that was approved is going to give you long-range financial security. So how do you address people who still believe that schools spend too much?
Well, I think, when we go back, I think let's start with the referendum. I think when we proposed the referendum and information that we communicated to the community is that our intention was to maintain what we have and not expand programs or anything, but maintain what we have. And I think so. I guess I would say we're not purposefully looking necessarily to reduce or make cuts, and take things off the budget, cut things from the budget. I will say that we do look all the time at ways to be fiscally responsible and find ways to reduce expenses. Some ways that we do it. It's not. Some ways we do it is putting things out to bid. We approved $9.2 million 18 months ago for capital projects. That's a process where we went out to bid. And we didn't take the highest bidder. We took the lowest bidder. So there are some areas within our budget, within our expenses, where we can look at ways or to try and find ways to minimize our expenses. I would say, since I've been on the board, that's, I think, been an ongoing effort, not only within the administrative office, but also within each of the buildings. Each of the principals are looking ways on how to be fiscally responsible, how to minimize expenses, and so on. I think, if you look at our budget, I think our budget is just like every other business or entity. 80 to 85% of your budget is compensation or salaries. So if I guess that's a choice, right? If you want to significantly cut expenses, one of the ways you would look at it is personnel. And we think and we believe that the community wants the quality education that we provide, and in order to do that, we are staffed at the level we are. When we look at our staffing levels based upon our metrics from the Illinois School ISB, we're not on the high end. We're pretty much right in the middle with a lot of our comparison districts. So I wouldn't say that we are overstaffed based upon the metrics. I think we're staffed to provide the education and the learning experience that the community expects.
And I would just add that we're committed to low class sizes. Research has shown, and our community has asked for it, they want more attention for their students. We have student aides in the classroom. We have social and well-being services that were called out. I just want to rewind the tape a bit and make sure people understand that the reason why we had to go to years ago to the community is because of inequities in funding. We're a Tier 1 school. People have a hard time viewing us as a school where students are on free and reduced lunch. People have a hard time understanding that people are still struggling in our communities, regardless of the low unemployment rate. This isn't our first rodeo in regards to a recession, but yet we were able to still staff and make sure that our students had adequate services. And the structural deficit, by definition, means that you're lacking in regards to your federal funding, your state funding. And so we had to do what any prudent person would do in our household and find other means to be able to make sure that we can still educate our children and provide meals to them as well, and other things and activities. And so I would say, to your initial question, and just adding on to what Mr. Bosch said, is that we never go into any meeting wondering how we can pass a burden on to our community. I would love for us to shift that narrative to, we don't view any of our kids as being a burden, and if we have to sacrifice to ensure that we get these kids a great start and foundation for their lives, we're willing to do that. What we commit to is to be fiscally responsible. I personally would not have been on this board, joined a committee where they're failing their audits or anything. We pass our audits. Not only that, it's the above and beyond, and just understanding when we have vacancies, do we need to fill that? Do we need that role? Doing that type of assessment as well. And so there's some other things that you asked about, capital campaigns. If it was up to some people, we would have went out and just spent all of our budget out right away on nice shiny buildings. but having, you know, students and staff that don't feel that they have other services. And lastly, you know, we do not receive sales tax, you know, revenue with all the developments going on. We've had minimal new housing stock, and so it's only so much you can do to be able to sustain. We're excited about the additional income, but the first order of business, just like you would do in your home, we're paying off some debt. So some of the things won't be immediate. It'll be some things that people won't see, the window dressing, but that will allow us to make sure that we, you know, can continue with the great programming and after school programming, the music programs, those things that many of the people that live in the community benefited from many years ago. We want to continue to allow these students to get the Homewood School District that they benefit from.
Thank you.
You know, if I can add to that,
Yeah.
because I think, you know, this is the third referendum that we passed since I've been on the board, and it didn't just barely pass, right? We do not take that lightly. We do not see this as a blank check that our community gave us, so thank you to the community who came out again and passed it overwhelmingly, so to the point that people outside of our community cannot believe those statistics, right? Ron, I think you used the word fiscally responsible, or Alex, you did, but that's certainly the underlying, anytime we come to something, it's how are we going to manage this money and not just, you know, just spend it because it's not just today, we're looking for that future. So our taxpayers, they can rest assured that our board is going to continue to operate from that fiscally responsible mindset.
Thank you. Thank you very much.